Hi everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit more about what exactly it's like to be in a psychiatric ward or psychiatric hospital. So I guess I just want to preface this by saying that these are my experiences, or this is based off of my own experiences within psychiatric hospitals or psychiatric facilities. And I know that it's not indicative of everyone's experience with these places. I know that some people find a lot of solace or comfort in psychiatric hospitals. This, however, has not been my experience with it, and so I'm just going to speak to that rather than speaking generally about everyone's experiences with it. So I guess we can start off with how you end up in a psychiatric hospital. So there are a few different routes that you can take to end up there, but the primary one is being formed by a medical professional, a doctor or a psychiatrist, where they basically write, I think it's called a Form 10 here in Canada, which basically certifies you to require to be kept in the hospital until you've been examined by 2 psychiatrists to deem whether or not it is appropriate to keep you there or whether or not you can be discharged safely. The other route that you can take is by being brought in by the police. So if they pick you up on the streets or wherever because you are doing something unlawful or you're creating a disturbance of some sort, or someone has just called out of concern for you, or you've made a call out of concern for yourself, the police can bring you to the hospital as well. Or the third route is to just check yourself in. So you can always go to the emergency room of a hospital and let them know that you're experiencing some concerns about your mental health, or you're in the midst of psychosis or whatnot, and you would like to be seen by a doctor there. So once you've been taken to the hospital or you've arrived at the hospital, the process of being admitted has been a little bit of a traumatic one for me. So you often are kept within a special mental health waiting room, which is not really a waiting room. It's more of a holding cell, basically, where you have a bed sometimes, or sometimes even just a chair. And you're basically locked in a room with or under surveillance. So somebody's always watching you. And they take all of your clothes, they take your shoes, they take your jewelry, all of your personal items, and you're just left to sit in this room, basically, until you're seen by a psychiatrist. Within this room, I was also, so I was suicidal at the last time that I was hospitalized, and I was trying to appease the voices that I was hearing by any means possible that were telling me to take my own life. And so I was trying to strangle myself with the hospital gown that I was wearing. And so they saw this and immediately rushed in with several members of their staff and picked me up and threw me down onto the gurney that was in the room and strapped me down with the restraints and injected medicine against my will. This was a really, really traumatic experience, and the whole thing was just generally fairly dehumanizing. There have been times where I've been taken to the hospital where it was a little bit less eventful than this, where I was kept in a, I guess, holding cell, because that's what it kind of felt like, where there was windows all around and just a bed, and I was just being observed for, it was actually over a day that I was kept like this before I was able to get a bed upstairs in the psychiatric ward. So the experience of being admitted varies from hospital to hospital, and it's different for everyone, but these are some of my experiences with it. So when you're actually in a psychiatric ward or a hospital, routine is a really big part of your day. So all the meals are scheduled to the minute, basically. There's also a specified bedtime where lights are turned out, and also wake up time where you are essentially forced to get out of bed in the morning. So routine is a really big part of your day-to-day life in a psychiatric ward. It depends on what hospital you're at in terms of what therapy is offered, or what activities are offered, or group sessions are offered. And so that engagement level can really differ a lot from hospital to hospital. But it has been my experience to not have had too much involvement with that sort of thing, which has been really hard, because you get really, I guess, bored and idle sitting in the hospital with nothing really to do but to think, basically. It's part of this, and part of just being locked in a place where you don't want to be, that makes it feel a lot, or really similar to what I would imagine jail might be like. So you're bunking with a lot of people, you're being told what to do and when to do it. You are not allowed to leave. You can be kept in isolation if you're deemed to be acting out. I have been put in isolation, and when I was stripped naked of all my clothes, and I was pinned to the ground by 6 hospital staff, both nurses and security, who then pinned me to the ground and administered meds against my will. So it was just experiences like this that really kind of soured my opinion of psychiatric wards and psychiatric hospitals, and I guess fed my opinion of always wanting to get out as early as I could. So even when you want to leave as early as possible, it can be really difficult to leave, especially when you're deemed to be a risk to yourself or to others. So every time I've been in the hospital, I've contacted a patient rights advocate, who is an external person who helps patients advocate for their rights within the hospital and for their right to leave, if that's something that you're wanting to advocate for as well. So every time I've been put up in front of a panel of psychiatrists and community members and whatnot who were meant to decide whether it was safe to be discharged or not for me, every time they shut me down. They said no every time, but sometimes it works for patients, but very rarely does it work. Usually they go with what the psychiatrist is recommending, and if they want to keep you there, then that's usually what they do. Something that I want to touch on, though, is the camaraderie, I guess, that can be forged when you're in a psychiatric facility. So you're spending all this time with these other patients, and so you tend to bond a little over your shared experience and your shared difficulties. In terms of having visitors by friends and family, there's usually visiting hours put in place for when they can visit. I believe the last hospital I was at, it was from 4 to 8 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon or evening. So again, there's not really a lot to do throughout the day, but then if you're lucky enough to have family and friends who are willing to come and visit you, that's kind of something to look forward to in the evenings. Your sense of time and reality kind of gets warped a little bit in the hospital or in a psychiatric facility. And things like snack time before bed become really pivotal periods throughout your day. So it was something to look forward to because I was interacting with other patients and nurses during that time. And it was a high point of the day, unfortunately, or something to look forward to. I guess a criticism or point of opportunity for improvement within psychiatric facilities would be to just implement better programming to teach better life skills, or to just refresh people on different life skills. So this can include programming on things like taking care of yourself, exercise, proper nutrition, basic finances, just life coaching with a mental health focus. Just things like this that can really help a person to better integrate after they're released from the hospital. So in terms of the actual discharge process, I guess another criticism that I would have would be that there really needs to be a lot more planning and care given to making sure that supports are in place for patients when they're discharged from the hospital in order to continue care within the community. For me, there was not a lot of discharge planning involved, and so it was kind of like a bit like catch and release, where I was just thrown back into the community with no real supports put in place after my discharge. With the one exception being my last hospital stay, where they referred me to a psychiatrist within the community, but that was it, and there was like a month wait. So there wasn't really any immediate support given. I don't have the exact statistics on hand, but it has been shown by several studies repeatedly that people are at the highest risk for suicide immediately after their discharge from a psychiatric institution or psychiatric hospital. The increased risk period is primarily for 3 months after their hospitalization. So I'm not really sure why we're not putting more effort into supporting these individuals who are reintegrating back into the community in order to reduce some of these suicide rates and some of these problems with reintegration back into the community. So in summary, I guess my experience with psychiatric facilities such as psychiatric hospitals or psychiatric wards has been a little bit more of a negative one, and it's felt something like what I imagine jail might feel like. This is a really far cry from the healing nature that hospitals should be encompassing, especially psychiatric hospitals where people are requiring specialized supports in order to heal from their psychiatric problems. So I hope this video helped to give some insight into what staying in a psychiatric facility is like. Again, I want to reiterate that these are my own experiences with it, and I know that it's not representative of everybody's experiences with psychiatric facilities. But in my own experience, I'm now working with my therapist and my psychiatrist to stay out of hospital as much as possible because it just hasn't been a good supportive environment for me in order to heal and deal with my mental illness. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks again and have a great day. Bye. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe to see future videos, and if you would like to help support the creation of these videos, make sure to check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Thanks again.